get it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, SchuZ Shoemaker, and boy, is there a lot of topics to get into today. Now, there's not going to be any guests on today's show. There was a couple of possible options that was going to come on today, but those are going to be postponed to a later date. But that doesn't mean that today's not going to be a special show to kick off this week, because there was a mega fight that went down this past weekend, and boy, I have to break that down. I'm going to break down that entire card for you guys. Also, I'm going to give you guys my updated pound-for-pound list. And after that, I'll be just getting into a few of the boxing topics in regards to Jarrell Big Baby Miller and what's going down with him after his different press conference issues that occurred last week for the Fabio Wardley card. Also going to be getting into some Andy Cruz topics, Jake Paul potential rumored opponents for his next fight, and Mosey Tillman potentially has his eyes set on a massive fight by the end of this year, according to Frank Warren. I'll be breaking all that down in today's show. But first and foremost, we have to get into what happened this weekend on Saturday. The Boots Ennis versus Stanionis card had quite a few statement things that I wanted to get into today. And there's no other way I could possibly start this segment off other than talking about the man himself, Boots Ennis. When we were heading into this fight and all the pre-talk, there was a lot of criticism regarding Jerome Boots Ennis. Last year, he did not perform to the level in which people wanted to see him perform at. Everybody felt like there was just something missing from Boots Ennis. And now we head into this fight, and fight week was building up, and we look at him being weight drained. It did not look very swell, to be honest, when we talk about the weight drain component, because Boots Ennis was not looking too good a couple of days before the fight. However, he did make his weight just fine. And then we head into the fight on Saturday night. And he gives us a masterful career performance that night. It was, without a shadow of a doubt, the best performance of his career when it mattered most for him. A unification fight where he was able to win 3 of the belts now. Most notably, the Ring Magazine belt, which obviously is regarded as the most prestigious award or belt to win in all of boxing. And in that fight, I want to break down a few things from him. Because when I review that fight and we talk about what went down in the duration of those 6 rounds before the doctor stoppage, or the corner retirement, I should say, occurred after round 6, we saw a special version of Boots Ennis. And listen, I hear all the debate and criticism still going on about Boots Ennis. Well, saying, hey, his defense is not superb. Yes, he was still taking hits. Yes, he was still taking on different things and whatnot. But listen, the fact of the matter is that's the way Boots Ennis fights. And as boxing fans, we need to start appreciating what boxers bring to the table. Not all boxers are going to be Floyd Mayweather 2.0. Some guys are going to take some hits to be able to land some hits. And that's what Boots Ennis does. And beyond that, if we're really going to get into specifics of what happened in that fight, you can't deny the fact that Boots Ennis was evasive in that fight, that he was avoiding a lot of great punches, and that he seemed to be a step or two ahead majority of the time. Yes, he still took some hits, but he looked just fine. He was eating those punches with quite ease, if we're going to be honest there. That fight showed a level of Boots Ennis' capability that we all knew he had in him, and now we get to see it come to fruition. The Boots Ennis that we saw fight Saturday night is the guy, without a shadow of a doubt, is the best fighter at 147, and it's not even comparably close to anybody else. You can give him Mario Barrios or Brian Norman, the 2 of the champions currently. It's not going to be a competitive fight. Yes, I'd like to see Brian Norman fight. That'd be great. Yes, I'd like to see Undisputed. That would not be too shabby. But let's be honest now. Boots Ennis is the best competition for Boots Ennis to possibly go after, if he's fighting the way he did Saturday night, is at 154. And we know there's a whole lot of big names at 154 that he could go after. And so that leads me to a point in which I want to discuss. What is next for Boots Ennis? Well, here's some things on the table. There's 3 guys that are all going to be fighting in a couple of weeks in Times Square. All rumored to possibly be moving up to 147, or already have done so, and that being Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia. All those fights would be entertaining and would be big fights to possibly make. The way Boots Ennis looked Saturday, I would be shocked if he would lose to any of those guys. I think Haney would have the best matchup if we're going to go looking at guy by guy. I think he gives the best possible opposition to Boots Ennis. However, those are the guys you could possibly bring up from 140. Then we go to 147. I just said Brian Norman, Mario Barrios. I'll throw another name out there. If Conor Benn potentially upsets Chris Eubank, or if Conor Benn at least looks very, very good against Chris Eubank, that could be a mega fight to have happen. You talk about 2 big brands that could be a big star potential fight to possibly have occur at 147. Or we look at 154. Virgil Ortiz, Charlo, or Spence. All makes sense. Now, Spence seems to be rumored at possibly still fighting 147 or 154. It seems that he's kind of going back and forth. I'm not sure he knows exactly what he's going to do in his return fight, but those are guys that I see on the table. Now, you might say, why do I not have Boots fighting a champion at 154? Well, listen, he will have to work his way up a little bit. 154 is a stacked division. One of the belts is kind of binded up right now with Bud Crawford. Who knows what's going to happen there? Then you have Sebastian Fundora has 2 of the belts. That could be an interesting fight to make there. And then third guy, Bakur Murtavaliev. If I'm Boots, I'm not going to go after those guys right out the gate. When you have a fight that could be mega, that would set you up for a world championship fight then, if you go and fight Virgil Ortiz. Charlotte or Spence could also make sense if those are available, or if those fights are available for himself. But what I really want to note here about Boots Ennis is that, yes, there was not a rehydration clause, so he was able to rehydrate fully, and that could have led to the energy in the way he fought this weekend. But I talked about it a little bit ago, and I really want to put a larger emphasis on this component. When we look at boxing fans, a lot of fans like to go after fighters and critique them, which is fine. Every guy has room to improve. No matter what industry you're in, you can always make room to improve. But we also need to realize that sometimes some fighters, if they're being successful in their ways, they need to embrace that type of ability that they have. Some guys are not going to be guys that are expert, top of the notch, high level defensive fighters. And some guys are not going to have the punch output that you'd like. Some guys are not going to have the KO ability. Who am I possibly referring to? Well, Shakur Stevenson is one guy. Obviously, people complain he does not have the KO power. He's a guy that's going to be such a great defensive player or fighter, but he's not a guy that's going to be able to go produce on the offensive end to the likes of a Tank Davis. But we don't just appreciate the defensive prowess that he has. Likewise with Boots, a lot of people want to complain, well, he's not very good on defense. He still is getting hit by Stanionis. And Stanionis has one heck of a jab, and he is one heck of a fighter. I don't want to take anything away from Stanionis because I think that he could debatably be the second best fighter at 147. I think they just ran into a guy in Boots Ennis who was leaps and bounds better than him that night and is a guy that I think truly is the best fighter at 147 without a shadow of a doubt. So we need to start embracing guys. This is what Boots Ennis is. He's not going to be the best defensive fighter in the entire game of boxing. That's not who he is. He's going to take some hits, but he's going to deliver them. And he obviously showed his ability to take hits and not be affected by it. And so I think we need to embrace this because that was Boots Ennis' best performance of his career. And it now gets him in position where I know eyes are going to be on him and say, hey, whatever your next fight is, it has a chance to be even massive, even bigger now. Because we're talking about a guy that everybody's bought into now. We see the potential. Some guys are already starting to put him on the top 10 pound list. I'll share mine in a few moments, but he's nearing that top 10 most certainly. And so it's going to be interesting to see what unfolds there. Let's go to the co-main event now. Raymond Ford defeats Thomas Matisse in as one side of a fight as you really can get. That does not involve a KO at least. Unanimous decision, 190 is the scorecard across the board for all 3 judges. The way that Raymond Ford fought on Saturday night showed flashes of a pound-for-pound top 10 fighter in the future. He's nowhere near there yet. He's still got a long, long way to go until he's even considered that group, but he's still a very, very young fighter. But Ray Ford went into that fight and fought 10 rounds. In 10 rounds, he only was hit 24 times. If we really want to do the math there, essentially 2.4 times he was punched per round in a 3-minute round. He would go minute chunks without even being hit. Just let those numbers sink in there for a moment. That is extremely hard to do, especially against a guy in Thomas Matisse who was a fine, solid fighter. Raymond Ford has the capabilities of becoming a pound-for-pound fighter if he continues to develop and work in his craft. So what's next for Raymond Ford? Well, listen. There was a fight that seems to be brewing a little bit now. And there's a guy that's the current champion at his weight class, 130, that could make a lot of sense for him. Now, who is that guy could be referring to right now? He's a U.S. fighter, 130 champion, who has the possibility of also moving up to 135, and it's been rumored for him to go fight Shakur Stevenson. But why doesn't he stay at 130 for another fight? And we possibly get Raymond Ford versus Shaqy Foster. You know, that's the fight that I am attracted to, that I really would like to see. I think that's a fight that would be massive. Because Raymond Ford is nearing, if not already earned, a shot at a world championship fight at 130 now. He would then become a 2 weight class world champion. But that's a fight that I would love to see. Now, does it come to fruition? I'm not quite sure yet. But that is a fight that I most certainly want to see. Let's go down to the other fight that was on the main card. Amari Jones, he defeated William Jackson via first round TKO. Pretty simple fight. Amari Jones went in there, took care of business. Second fight, 2-0 now in his career. Remember, he is the only American to have earned a medal in this past year's Olympics. Yeah, that's a whole other story we've talked about many times before in the U.S. problem with the Olympics. But Amari Jones earned that medal. Amari Jones is now 2-0. Amari Jones now has 2 KOs on his resume, and I like the way he fights. I think Amari Jones is the guy that when I look at what he brings to the table, he's a guy that I would not be shocked to see have a very, very bright career. It's still early on. I understand those things, but the way he fights, his skill, his composure, and obviously he has some form of KO power, is a guy that I'm very, very enticed about. He's still developing, still very, very young. Who knows what weight class he's actually going to go grow into when he actually starts competing for world championship. But while we're at it, I'm excited about him. He is a guy that's quickly rising up my top prospect list. Now, he's still got some ways to go, as I said, but I really like what I see from Amari Jones. And I would not be shocked if we go see him now in just a few short weeks, potentially in the George Kambosos fight and Richardson Hitchens. I'm not sure if that's going to be the next fight we see. I'm trying to think if there's any matchroom fights that would make sense. But that one's going to go down in New York in June, if I'm not mistaken. So that would June 15th, I believe. So that would actually make a lot of sense for him to return there. That's only about 2 months. Yeah, 2 months exactly from now. So I would not be shocked to see that be the fight that we see him on next. But Amari Jones, I'm very, very high on what I saw in that fight. Shakram Gayasov, he also had a big KO win, 4th round KO against Franco Maximiliano Ocampo. That sets him up to be the guy that could potentially fight Boots. Now, he will be the mandatory. The only thing is I don't think Boots will entertain that fight. If Boots is going to return, I see Boots going down an opportunity to possibly go fight, a unification again to pursue undisputed or move up to 154 or go big fight we already talked about. However, he does become the mandatory for Boots Ennis at this point in time now. So we'll see what ends up unfolding there. A couple other things I want to touch up about this card. We're going to go to the prelims real quick. So Quinn Moses, he gets the second round KO. Listen, he's so young. He's still got a long, long way till we're talking about competing on a high stage. But I really like what I saw from Moses. He is a guy that I really do believe in. I think he has potential to be a great fighter in the future. And I'm excited to see where he's going to continue to develop. The other guy I really want to touch up on is Tamir Smalls. I've seen him a few different times in different clips or whatnot. But he goes against Earl Bascombe and he's the first round KO. And he looked really, really sharp in that first round. I would like to see Matchroom get a deal with him and start promoting him and also get him on more cards because, listen, he looks good. I really like what I saw from him. I said now that I'm going to give you guys my updated pound-for-pound rankings. And the way I like my rankings is I'm not a big fan on just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I like going by tiers a little bit more because I think these guys are so close with each other that it's very, very hard to dispute these. And I think when you put into tiers, it makes it a lot easier. So here's my tiers that I have for after this past weekend, how I've got them broken down. My first tier, tier 1, Usyk, Bud Crawford, Inoue. You rank them however you want to rank them. That's my top 3. All 3 guys deserve those top 3 spots. All 3 guys are deserving of a first place. They're all the elite of the elite. They're in the tier number 1 for me. In tier number 2, Bivol, Beterbiev. Bivol obviously is a little bit above. You want to say 2A and Beterbiev 2B. I'm all with that. But ultimately, I think Beterbiev is closer to Bivol than he is going to be closer to the guys I have in my third tier. That's why I put him right there. Let's go to the third tier for myself. Bam Rodriguez, Canelo Alvarez. Both of those guys are worthy of those spots. Canelo has not fought the guys that he should be fighting if he wants to remain high up in the pound-for-pound rankings. I have to drop him a little bit. He's going to be at 4 or about that little bit 5-6 range, those 2 guys. Bam Rodriguez can continue to climb his way up. He's still very, very young. Canelo Alvarez fighting William Skull. That's not going to move the needle at all. If he loses, he drops down far. But we'll see what ends up unfolding there. Let's go to the fourth tier now. It gets a little bit larger. Junta Nakatani, Shakur Stevenson, Taraji, and David Benavidez. However you want to rank those guys, I'm okay with it. But those 4 guys are all guys that I see pretty much neck and neck. You could make a case for one guy being a little bit higher for this reason or that reason, this guy being higher for that reason or that reason. However, when I look at these rankings, that's the way I put those guys in my 4th tier. The 5th tier, I move Boots up into this tier now. Devin Haney, Tank, Loma, Teo, and Boots Ennis. All 5 guys are Tank was in my top 10 for a very, very long time. The Lamont Roach one bumped him just out. I probably would have him at about 12. Boots Ennis, incredible performance. That being said, he needs to do a little bit more, possibly going to become a champion at 154, have another big fight or two at 147. I just need to see a little bit more to have him be up there. But if he has one or two more big fights, he'll be in the top 10. Tank, if he comes down and destroys Lamont Roach, he's back in there with ease. Devin Haney, same thing. By the end of the year, he could easily be in my top 10 as well. Loma and Teo, obviously same story there. Now, Loma, I think he's going to be retiring. However, that is on the table. He's still going to be just in that top 5th tier for myself. Then we're going to go to the next tier, 6 and 7. At 6, I have Janibek, Opataya, Virgil Ortiz, and at number 7, Zerto, Yabuki, Navarrete. Those guys are all guys that are a little bit ways out from being in that top 10 pound-for-pound list, but just guys I want to throw in there. They have accomplished a lot in their careers. They're excellent fighters, and they have a chance to be able to move up higher, in my opinion. So that is my updated pound-for-pound tiers list as of right now. Let's get into some boxing news that's been going on over the past few days, though. I'm going to read this news report word for word. Jarrell Big Baby Miller will have a portion of his fight purse for his upcoming bout with Fabio Worley withheld by the BBFC due to his behavior at the kickoff press conference on April 7th, per an email obtained by Ring Magazine's Mike Coppinger. Listen, I get it. His behavior was not appropriate per se for the press conferences with Fabio Worley to kick it off. The BBFC does not mess around, though, and they handle business quite quickly. Not anything like we're going to see in America at any point in time, but what he did, is it worthy for him to have to go have a portion of his fight purse deducted? Now, is it a large sum or a small sum? I'm not sure what that number is. That would make this statement a lot, or this opinion be a little bit more clear. However, there's a thing as promotion. We see that a lot in America. Obviously, it's not as tolerated with the BBFC over there in Britain. So we'll see what's unfolding there. But in my opinion, I'm not in favor of that. But the BBC does not mess around, and we are well aware of that. Some Andy Cruz news has now been leaked out. We're trying to get some rumors going on what's Andy Cruz going to be fighting next. At this point in time, the IBF lightweight title final eliminator between Andy Cruz and Mashiro could take place on the Richardson Hitchens George Kambosos card. That is being targeted for June 14th. I already talked about that a few moments ago. However, this leaves a lot of questions, though. What is Andy Cruz going to be fighting for? We all know the fight to make is Andy Cruz, Keyshawn Davis. We all know we want to see that eventually. However, it appears he's going to be going the IBF route. He's not lining himself up with the WBC, which is Shakur Stevenson. He's not going down the WBA, Tank Davis. And he's not going down the WBO, which is Keyshawn Davis. So he is kind of putting himself in position with the IBF, and what it's going to kind of look like is, assuming Vasily Lomachenko decides to retire, not return to the ring at any point, the Cruz-Mashiro winner would then become the mandatory winner to fight the winner of the May 10th fight between Abdulev and Muradova. So those guys would kind of line up for each other, potentially fight each other for the IBF championship to replace Lomachenko. A lot of moving parts there. However, Andy Cruz seems to be in position to be fighting Mashiro. A solid fight. If Andy Cruz does get past that fight, and he gets past the winner, like I said, the May 10th fight, there's one fight to make. Keyshawn Davis and Andy Cruz unification fight. That'd be quite well, if you ask me. There's a man that has not fought now, though, since the fight that was quite controversial, to say the least. He fought a man that was about 60 years old, and Mike Tyson. Well, he's going to be announcing his return to the ring quite soon now. And there's a few guys on the table. One guy we heard was Nico Ali. That could be on the table. But now today, the tide has turned a little bit, and it appears he's going to be fighting Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. I know I have to make sure I add that Jr. there, because who knows with Jake Paul, we could get quite confused if he's going to fight another old man or not. That being said, though, is Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. a fight that we want to see? I don't really care, to be honest. Will I watch it? Of course. I watch almost all the boxing fights that matter, but I just don't know what to say about this. It's not a competitive fight, and it could sell decently, but it's not the best fight in the world to make. Julio Cesar Chavez is not that guy. I don't know how that fight goes, but I'm sure Jake Paul wins it. He's been searching, though. And the one thing I will notice is that Jake Paul seems to have not been able to lock in the fights he wanted. He had the Canelo fight lined up. Turki Al-Sheikh said, no, not on my watch. I'm going to take that fight from you and have Canelo and Bud Crawford fight. Screwed him over a little bit there. Now there's all these other opportunities we've been trying to pursue, and it appears we're going to be nearing SchuZ Show for the summer times. We'll see what's unfolding there, though. The final topic I want to get into on today's show is Mosi Toma. He could potentially be fighting the winner of or potentially be fighting Alexander Usyk. This is according to Frank Warren. Andy Clark was on the show last week, and he talked about how high he is on Mosi Toma, how high the entire boxing world is. He is, without a shadow of a doubt, the number one prospect in boxing. Of course, he's the number one heavyweight prospect as well, and will he become a world champion in the future? Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. That being said, Usyk has likely 2, maybe a maximum of 3 fights remaining in his career. Does it make sense for him to fight Mosi Toma? I don't think so. There is many, many fights that are on the table to make for Usyk, and that just does not seem like the fight to make. What I see happening more likely is Toma gets a couple more fights under his belt, Usyk retires, and then he takes over the reins. And one day down the line, the massive fight we're going to see would be a British fight. Toma, Daniel Dubois. That's the fight I want to see. That seems more realistic for me. Is it possible? Sure, of course it's possible. Turkey Alex Cheeks involved. Anything could happen at that point. But does Alexander Usyk versus Mosi Toma in 2025 make much sense to me? Not at all. Not because Toma's not worthy of it, not because Toma can't put up a good fight, just because Usyk is at that final stage of his career where he's looking for the biggest fights to make that mean the most to his record and his resume. Does Toma, at his age of only being 20 or 21 years old, make much sense for him? No. When you're talking about him going after fighting Tyson Fury and all these other guys and now potentially lining himself up for an undisputed fight with Daniel Dubois, that could make sense. Joseph Parker, Ajit Caballel, possibly going back down to cruiserweight, fighting the winner of a potential Zurdo Obataia fight. There's a lot of big fights on the table right now that Toma just does not make sense. But don't get me wrong, Toma is going to be a world champion one day. He will be in a position where he could earn that right to possibly go and fight Alexander Usyk. But for the time being, I just don't think that makes much sense. I don't think we're going to see that come to fruition. But that being said, folks, I just want to get on here, break down some news in boxing, and just gives you guys kind of a preview and a breakdown what happened this weekend on Saturday as well. I've got lots of guests lined up for the rest of this week as long as they all come to fruition. So I'll see you guys tomorrow with 2 shows. I'll announce who's going to be on the show tomorrow. I should have 2 guests potentially that as of now scheduled, so I'll let you guys keep you guys updated on that. I appreciate you guys all for tuning in, and I will talk to you guys shortly. See you guys tomorrow. God bless you guys all.